Hey, Futurist and Carroll, welcome to hopefully the first of many online broadcasts I will do in this new world we're about to begin. I have no idea if this is going to work. I've got a horrifically complicated setup happening here. I'm going to take you on a tour of that in about 5 minutes with 3 cameras, multiple computers, 2 green screens, microphones happening all over the place, a whole bunch of lights. Anything could crash, the internet could go down, but I'm going to give it my best shot. So welcome. And I'm going to talk about what do we do in an era of absolute massive uncertainty. Look, all of our worlds have been rocked in the last month and a half. We don't know what is going to happen in the future. We don't know how things are going to unfold and what comes next and what we should do about it. And in my previous life, that was like the life I had about 2 months ago, I would spend my time on stage around the world speaking to events, speaking to conferences, helping people to understand the trends that would impact our future and what we needed to do to align to a new reality. Look, it seems like a lot of that guidance has gone out the window, but it really hasn't. We've been here before. Look, I spent a lot of time on stage after the global economic meltdown of 2008 and 2009, and previously with the dot-com collapse of 2001, 2002. And what I found was that a lot of leaders were pleading for guidance on what do we do to deal with an era of absolutely massive economic challenge. And so I'm going to be replaying a little bit of that thinking that I shared on stage at that time. Here's one of the most important things that I learned. Some research that I did right after the economic collapse in 2008 found that 60% of organizations, they just sort of muddled their way through. They didn't do anything big and bold. They didn't focus on what they could do. They were so focused on the short-term stuff by necessity, they just sort of muddled their way through. 30% of companies didn't make it. But 10% became breakthrough performers because they specifically decided during a period of economic uncertainty, right now was the time to do something that was big and bold, to make big, bold decisions. So let's tie this into my other theme, which I've been covering on stage for a long, long time, and that is that, look, the future belongs to those who are fast. I've emphasized for a long period of time that we are in this era in which change is coming at us faster than ever before. Trends are happening faster than ever before. We live in the era of acceleration. And so if you don't have speed, if you don't have agility, if you don't have the ability to move quickly, you won't survive. And I think what we're learning right now is that is becoming more true, more real than ever before. So if you follow me online, you know that I put out a series of daily quotes, daily inspirations, insight and guidance to try to encourage people, what do we do to align in the future? This is one that I put out a few days ago. If there was ever a time to think big, it would be at this very moment in time. Because part of what is happening out there, and part of what I'm convinced is real, is that organizations, some of them are making decisions right now, not only to try to survive and get through this thing, but they are working extremely hard to capitalize on some obvious and not so obvious trends in order to get ahead. And that's what I'm hoping to cover in this brief little broadcast. So I'm going to go for about 30, 40 minutes. I really have no idea how long this is going to unfold, and share with you today and next Thursday and the Thursday after that and the Thursday after that some of the things that I'm seeing in the news, some of the things I'm witnessing in my client base, some of the things I'm observing with the discussions that I'm having with folks on what is coming about and what we need to do to align to this new reality. If anything, I want to spur you into action. Look at that. There's a camera that I think is frozen. I want to encourage you to make sure that you can align yourself to future trends as they unfold to turn this into an opportunity. Now, let me give you a brief tour of the setup that I have in this room here. There's a long shot. So I'm currently down in my basement. I've got a series of lights. We've got 2 green screen walls actually as part of the studio and multiple different camera angles. Siri is talking to me, imagine that. Multiple different camera angles. Now this is all running through a Mac, which is located with these multiple cameras plugged into it. It is feeding out to a service called Restream.io. Restream.io is refeeding that out to Periscope, to YouTube, to LinkedIn, and also to Facebook Live. Then I've got another stream that is going out to a platform called Crowdcast. And Crowdcast is actually restreaming that out to individuals who've joined through that platform. And I've got another version which is hitting Zoom. And I actually just sort of crashed that about 2 minutes before I went live. But look, this is a crazy setup with multiple video streams going out, multiple camera angles, really, trying to do something different here. Because look, a lot of folks are doing webcasts, and a lot of them are just, putting up very basic images without anything very real. I've also got the ability to switch between multiple different backdrops that you can use to see, sort of the theme of what I'm talking about. So what are some of the trends that we are witnessing out there? One of the very first real trends, I call it parking lot innovation. You are witnessing this with what is happening with retailers. You're witnessing this happen with what is going on with healthcare organizations, and you're witnessing it with pharmaceutical companies. You're witnessing it with drugstores. For a long time in the world of retail, we have talked about the need, and I'm just going to check my stream here to see that we're working. We've talked about the need to have pick and pack delivery. We've talked about the need to accelerate our e-commerce capabilities. We've talked about the requirement to do things to align to this new world in which more people need to be able to do things in this online world. And matter of fact, next week I was supposed to be speaking in Chicago at a retail conference on these very themes. What happened with a lot of organizations is they had a lot of talk about these issues. They had a lot of discussions. They had a lot of committee meetings. But a lot of retailers and a lot of pharmaceutical stores didn't really move ahead. And then COVID-19 happened. And I think what we are witnessing from an innovation perspective right now is a lot of organizations are really accelerating their capabilities, their skills, what they can do to ensure that they are part of this massive change in consumer behavior, this massive change which is coming with lockdowns. So I've witnessed a bunch of stories. Rite Aid, for example, the US drugstore chain, has been very aggressive in innovating to try to put in place parking lot-based COVID-19 testing. They're having to move extremely fast. They're having to be very agile. They're having to break down all the innovation barriers which might have previously held them back in doing big and bold things. We are certainly witnessing this with grocery stores. Think about how quickly you've seen your local grocer, your national grocer move in aligning themselves to the reality of what is happening as people need the ability to pick up groceries or the ability to shop online. They're struggling in terms of demand, but what we are witnessing is organizations moving faster than ever before. I'm convinced that part of what is going to happen is we're going to come out at the other side of this thing eventually, and organizations are going to discover that this capability that we call agility, flexibility, the ability to move faster than ever before is really going to take hold. This is going to fundamentally shape up the very essence and culture of a lot of organizations, because what is happening right now, a very real trend, is they are learning how to work extremely quickly. Second observation. This morning, my daily inspirational quote was, right now, urgency is the mother of all innovation. Organizations are sitting back, they're looking at what they're doing, they're sitting back and examining what they need to do to align to these new realities, and they are realizing there's no time to waste. They've got to pull together a team, they've got to pull together capabilities, they've got to put in place infrastructure they've never had before. Urgency is the absolute massive forward perspective of what they need to do. I'm checking some of the questions which are coming in live on multiple different platforms. I got a lot going on in here, and we haven't crashed yet. Third thing is organizations are discovering, we've switched camera angles here, organizations are discovering that some of the trends that they've talked about in the past are suddenly becoming very real. I think this camera angle is not working particularly well. They're discovering that issues that they've talked about, for example, artificial intelligence. We've talked about it a long time. How can we really use it within our organization? Well, I came across a fantastic story from Danone, the ice cream company, that they are now using some of the previous AI algorithms that they were looking at pre-COVID-19, and they're realizing that this is helping them to manage their supply chain in new and different ways that they never really anticipated. The same observation applies to what grocery chains Albertsons and Loblaws are doing. These organizations are using artificial intelligence capabilities to manage demand, forecast demand, and suddenly align to this new reality in which people are doing things in very different ways that they never really expected. So what is happening here is organizations are discovering that this entire situation is accelerating a lot of the past capabilities that they'd been wrestling with. Fourth observation, companies are learning that they have to innovate, change, and adapt in terms of customer outreach. Came across a great story from a group called the Beautiful Hiker. Small retail operation, couple owners, husband and wife, and suddenly in the world of retail, they saw their entire business success almost go down the drain. So what have they been doing? They've turned to Facebook Live with a bunch of really quirky videos to try to reach out to their customer base, to talk about some of the products that they have, to try and use a new channel to reach customers who might previously have come into their store or who might have interacted with their website. What we are discovering is a new willingness to innovate, try new ideas in terms of customer outreach, try to do new things we haven't done before, to try to gain some attention. That's why I'm doing this webcast. A little bit out of my comfort zone. I'm not really on a stage, but to a degree, I am on a stage. And I am hoping that through this mechanism, I can build a little bit of interest in what I do and somehow migrate into this new online world. Look, we really don't know if people are going to get into a situation where they are willing to bring speakers into an online session with a corporate group to talk about the future, talk about trends, talk about innovation. But look, we got to try because we know we're going to be in this new reality for quite some time. So try to reach out to your customers in new and different ways. Another observation, and this screen actually didn't work too well, different camera angle. When we had the economic downturn of 2008, and I was using the role of this camera, hopefully the audio was working. I spent some time with Compass Food Group. They were a food service company. What they discovered was that this was having a massive impact, the downturn of 2008, 2009, upon their key customer base. So they adopted the mindset of, we're going to parse our customer group down into three different segments. Those that we've got a bit of a difficult relationship with, the relationship is tenuous, we're probably not going to be able to do a lot with them through the downturn. Those that they had a marginal revenue opportunity with them, we're going to service them, we're going to make work. But then they discovered 15% of their customer base who maximized their overall revenue potential. And their entire focus was what we are going to do through this downturn is we are going to work with them to try to solve their problems. What can we do to make it easier for you to do business with us? And their thinking was, if they did that, they would then maximize their revenue opportunities, and that would be something that would help them to go forward into the future. Back to the camera that's working. What I'm witnessing is some of the trends that I've talked about in the past are actually becoming real at this moment in time. The world of healthcare, very good example. For a long time, I talked about the fact that we might have the emergence of what I call real-time analytical predictive healthcare dashboards. It's a mouthful, but what I was explaining on stage was we were quickly emerging into a world in which we might have the big data analytical capabilities to predict the emergence of healthcare conditions in real time. It's happening now. Think about what you are witnessing in every single aspect of the world of healthcare, all the graphs you've been looking at, all the exponential data, all the information that you are reading on multiple different sources about the emergence of new cases, the analysis of new cases. I think what is happening is the healthcare industry is undergoing this massive change where they have come to discover that not only is the concept of real-time analytical predictive healthcare dashboards a theoretical thing, but it's actually a reality. We are witnessing the emergence of something really big and important here in terms of how this is going to change our world. Obviously, I'm spending a lot of time looking at the world of healthcare. And one of the most fascinating stories I'm witnessing are doctors who are challenging assumptions as to what we need to do in terms of community care. A lot of hospitals have what we call protocols in place, very specific protocols as to what we need to do to manage critical care situations. And there's been protocols put in place based on past experience as to how to deal with respiratory distress, which is a key part of COVID-19. There are some doctors, particularly one in New York City, who's come to realize that those protocols don't really work. We need to do things different. We need to challenge the assumptions which have held us back in terms of where we go forward in the future. And I think a key innovation trend which is unfolding here is organizations challenging the assumptions which hold them back. We are also witnessing a massive acceleration in collaborative science around the world. What is happening with genomic science, for example, is one good example of what is going on in terms of the absolute acceleration of every single aspect. I like this camera angle a lot better. That one's having a bit of a problem. Every single aspect of the world of science. I'm witnessing organizations suddenly decide to do things that they said would never previously have been possible. Think about the world of justice. Think about the world of courtrooms. Think about the world of judges and lawyers and criminal trials and commercial trials. So I have a friend, she's a judge, an Ontario Superior Court judge. Look, the world of justice, we've talked for years that maybe we could do video conferencing. Maybe we can, streamline and avoid some cost in a complex justice system by utilizing technology a little bit more. But that has always been held back by the attitude that we've always done it this way. But what is happening in the world of justice right now is, with this individual and other judges, we are witnessing the emergence of a lot of online trials, online hearings. And for this particular individual, she's got a screen in which she's on, in essence, the podium in the courtroom. She's got another screen with the lawyers and another screen with the documents. And all of a sudden, we've witnessed the virtualization of the law. This is happening all over the place. And so what is happening here, it goes back to the issue of challenging assumptions in terms of what we can actually accomplish. Somebody reported me big echo kicking in, perhaps two mics on. That's could be a possibility. I got to do a post-mortem after we are done. Let's consider another example of what is occurring. Back to this awful camera angle. We are witnessing organizations who plan to have one business model, but then realize their agility and flexibility to quickly do something different could help them align to opportunities in this crisis. I came across a news article about a company in Buffalo, New York, Rapid Medical Devices, and their game plan was to use 3D printing technology for the aerospace industry. COVID-19 emerged. They quickly realigned themselves for 3D printing of parts that could be used within the construction of ventilators and other critical care components throughout the world of healthcare. So organizations are realigning themselves faster than ever before. One of the last trends I want to focus on is I think part of what is happening here is a lot of the trends we've talked about in the past in terms of new infrastructure, new business models, and new technologies are being accelerated. Think about last mile delivery. Think about robotics. Think about self-driving vehicles. Certainly we are seeing a lot of acceleration with self-driving vehicle technology and a lot of acceleration with what is happening, for example, with drone technology. One of my sons has a drone company, and we've been talking back and forth that we're probably going to see the arrival of drone delivery technology faster than ever before. Last point, as a leader, be real. One of the most fascinating stories I've witnessed in the past has to do with the Prime Minister of New Zealand. I mean, talk about reality. When she issued the orders to the nation for a stay-at-home process to try to mitigate the impact of COVID-19, she actually did the broadcast from, some people think, her bedroom while wearing sweatpants. It's real, it's honest, and that's the type of thing that leaders need to do today during this very complex time, is be very realistic in their expectations and how they interact with people. Here's the most important thing that we can learn from all of these lessons and additional lessons that I will share in the future. You can't just wait for the future to happen. All of this is unfolding right now. There are unprecedented opportunities emerging right now for you to be of a mindset that you're going to try and get ahead, and you're going to be this particular ball in a series of inactive balls. going ahead, trying to accomplish great things. That's what we've learned in previous periods of economic uncertainty. Those organizations who really took the time to get ahead are those who succeeded. The key issue is this. One of the quotes I put out a little while ago is, we don't know if we're at the bottom of this thing. You never really know if you've hit rock bottom until you're back on top. And what history has taught us is those organizations who innovate, change, and adapt through a period of economic uncertainty are those who really win. So I'm going to close with this short little video clip, and then we'll actually see if a little bit of Q&A can work. I was on stage with Yum Brands in Las Vegas in March 2009. Yum Brands is KFC, Taco Bell, Pizza Hut. I had 7,000 people in the room. They brought me in to talk about what do we do to innovate during a period of economic uncertainty. I went back and I re-edited the video a little while ago, put a music soundtrack on top of it. And I'm going to play it for you now because I think the guidance that I gave that organization and 7,000 people in the room back in March 2009 is just as equally important right now. Give it a listen.
And I think the big question for everybody in the room is, when do we begin to innovate? Do we begin, once we're out of this economic challenge? Do we begin once we're comfortable that we're through the difficult times that we're seeing around the world? Or do we make the conscious decision right now, each and every one of us, that we are going to focus on the future from this point on? We're going to innovate and be ready for when we see that headline. I was talking at one event in October as the meltdown was beginning to occur, and the CEO was on stage, and part of his message was, look, given what's happening, we have three choices. Number one, we can panic. Number two, we can do nothing. Or number three, we can continue to innovate, change, and adapt. You know what I like in what we're going through this period of time? I call it the 7 stages of economic grief. When you lose a loved one, you go through a bereavement process. You go through the stages of grief. You go through the anger stage. You go through the denial phase. And eventually, after a period of time, you get to the acceptance stage. You think about the rate at which these developments unfolded. I think a lot of us, for the last several months, we've been in the absolute shock phase. We're looking at our investments. We're in the anger stage. We're looking at our investments. We're in the denial stage. And what is happening within a lot of organizations, we're all like, in North American phrase, we're like deer in the headlights. We're standing here frozen. We don't know what to do next. We turn on CNN and it is a constant bombardment of negative news. When do we innovate? We have to make a conscious decision right now. And that's why you're having this conference right now. To focus on growth, to focus on future, to focus on opportunity. It's a conscious decision to move aggressively right into the acceptance stage, and we're going to start innovating for the future because we know we will see that economic recovery headline at some point in time in the future because we are going to be part of the people who are going to build the economic recovery. You notice what Intel has done? Intel has made the conscious decision that they are going to invest $7 billion in building new plant infrastructure, building new chip plant infrastructure, because their conscious decision is we're going to build for growth. We're going to make the conscious decision that we are going to be a driver of that growth.
Powerful message, and it bears repeating. We need to focus on opportunity. We need to focus on the future. Look, when I walked out on stage in my old life, I would say to folks, look, I can't be a futurist and say, guess what, your future sucks. We wouldn't get a lot of repeat business. And I think we have to take the same attitude. We want to be this guy. We don't want to be any of these guys. And that's what I'm going to try and do through this broadcast. Reading a little bit of the feedback coming in, a lot of echo happening in some sections. So there's some obvious bugs to work out, some obvious things that I need to fix. And I'll be working on this through the next week. But I'm hoping you join me again next Thursday. Same time, same place, same infrastructure. I'll get the other webcam working. This is really how you innovate. You got to try and do things you haven't done before. You just need to go for it. You can't wait for the future to happen. You can't sit around and say that, everything's got to be perfect before I try and do something new. You have to try to do things you haven't done before. So hopefully you enjoyed it. One last thing, before this thing unfolded, I actually released a new book in January. If you follow my daily motivational quotes, I rolled a bunch of them into book, came out in January, then the global economic meltdown happened, and it's like absolutely disappeared. Who wants to be thinking about the future right now? But if you are interested, you can find it on my website. You can find it on Amazon. You can find it at a bunch of other book sites. You might actually find it interesting because it shares a lot of my optimism and motivation with respect to what comes next in the future. So that's it for now. Futurist Jim Carroll from the home broadcast studio. Hope you enjoyed it. And next time I'm going to figure out as well how to work in live Q&A and polling during the talk. That's it for now.